In the heart of South Asia, a quiet revolution is taking place. Not in weapons nor in political treaties, but in sheer economic power. India, long considered the world's sleepy giant, is awakening. For decades, China dominated headlines and markets with its relentless, high-speed growth. Everyone watched, wondering, when will China reshape the world? But today the story is shifting. India is surging forward with an energy and pace that the world has not seen in generations, hitting growth rates of 8.2%, numbers that do more than impress. They signify a massive shift. This is the beginning of a structural transformation. India is building a future through people, innovation, and youthful ambition. The country's 1.4 billion citizens, the youngest major economy on the planet, are fueling a wave of consumption, creativity, and enterprise that is rewriting what is possible in the 21st century. The story of India's rise is not about luck or short-term gains. It's about a demographic advantage, governance reforms, and sectoral revolutions aligning perfectly in time. China's era was the story of the 20th century. India's is the story of the 21st, a story just beginning, and one the world cannot afford to ignore. India's economy grew by a staggering 8.2% in fiscal 2024. This is not just fast, it is breathtaking, the fastest pace among all G20 nations, leaving the US, Europe, and even China's slowing 5% growth far behind. These numbers are more than data points. They are markers of a tectonic shift, a structural inflection in global economics that signals the dawn of a new era. India is no longer a distant challenger in the global power race. It is accelerating toward the center stage, fueled by demographic momentum, economic reform, and sectoral transformation. For decades, China dominated the imagination of policymakers and investors alike. Its meteoric rise, decades of double-digit growth, and sweeping industrialization seemed inevitable and even unstoppable. But that explosive chapter is closing. China now faces a slowing economy, an aging population, and a governance model that increasingly prioritizes control over growth. The most startling example is the massive, crippling property crisis, with giants like Evergrande defaulting on $330 billion in liabilities, creating an anchor of debt that weighs down the entire economy. The 21st century, it seems, is refusing to repeat the 20th. India, by contrast, is moving in the opposite direction. Its $3.9 trillion economy is not just growing, it is building on a foundation that promises sustainability. Forecasts show growth of 6.7% through 2026, with the potential to hold at 7% or more for decades. The significance is staggering. Maintain this trajectory, and India becomes the world's third largest economy within just 5 years, and potentially the second largest by 2040. Unlike China's sprint, India's rise is a marathon, steady yet unstoppable, powered by structural advantages that compound over time. This is not a story of temporary momentum. It is a story of inevitability. This demographic boom feeds another revolution, the rise of the middle class. More than 400 million people are stepping into the consumer bracket, generating internal demand on a scale never before seen. India is solving two monumental economic puzzles at once. It is simultaneously creating a productive workforce and a domestic market large enough to sustain itself, creating a self-reinforcing engine of growth. And the intellectual firepower is just as impressive. Each year, India produces over 10 million engineers, IT specialists, and PhDs, fueling a knowledge economy that extends far beyond manufacturing. India is not only building wealth, it is building brains. This combination of youth, skill, and scale is the structural advantage that ensures India's growth is not a flash in the pan, but a sustainable trajectory toward global leadership. China got rich while it aged. India is getting rich while it stays young. And in the 21st century, youth is power. Over the years, India's potential was tethered, not by a lack of talent or ambition, but by its own bureaucracy, a sprawling labyrinthine system that made starting a business feel like navigating a maze with no exit. Investors despaired, entrepreneurs stalled, growth sputtered, not for lack of vision, but for lack of efficiency. Today, that story is changing, quietly, yet profoundly. India is rewriting the rules of governance, creating a framework that doesn't just allow businesses to survive, but also thrive. At the heart of this transformation is reform. The implementation of the Goods and Services Tax, GST, replaced dozens of state and local levies with a single unified national tax. What was once a fragmented, unpredictable marketplace has become coherent and predictable, opening the country as a single, integrated economic entity. Bankruptcy laws have been modernized, labor regulations simplified, and foreign direct investment policies liberalized, turning India into a magnet for global capital. Companies that once spent months, sometimes years, navigating permits and approvals can now start operations at a fraction of the previous time. In the second half of 2024 alone, UPI processed over 93 billion transactions, valued at over 130 trillion rupees, approximately 1.5 trillion US dollars, streamlining commerce from megacities to rural villages. Public policy is no longer a bottleneck. It is an enabler. The contrast with China is striking. While Beijing's system remains efficient, it is increasingly restrictive, opaque, and unpredictable for foreign businesses. India, by contrast, is opening doors while modernizing its internal mechanisms. Timing is everything. India is addressing its structural governance challenges just as China confronts growing political and economic rigidity. In the 21st century, governance is power, and India is discovering that efficiency, openness, and technology are the tools that will unlock its long-delayed promise. At the core is the booming IT and services sector. India's software expertise is a dominant global competitive advantage, generating over $250 billion in IT service exports annually. Complementing this is the pharmaceuticals sector. India supplies roughly 20% of the world's generic drugs, effectively supplying the medicine for the entire developing world. The fintech boom is perhaps the most transformative domestic change. India's UPI payment system is now processing over 10 billion transactions monthly, making the nation a global leader in digital payments adoption. Simultaneously, the Make in India initiative is attracting global manufacturers, particularly in electronics and automotive. The most famous example is Apple. Just a few years ago, virtually all iPhones were made in China. Today, Apple is rapidly scaling up assembly in India, producing key iPhone models in facilities across the country, turning the China Plus One strategy into an immediate economic boom. The comparison with China reveals why India's rise is not just massive, but inevitable, assuming it can avoid major political instability. The single biggest factor is the demographic reality. India is young and growing, while China is old and shrinking. Secondly, their governance trajectories are diverging. India is steadily improving its ease of doing business and opening up to global talent and ideas. China is tightening control, making its environment increasingly insular. India's economic model is vastly more diversified, built on a robust mix of high-value IT, pharmaceuticals, and finance, backed by a booming startup ecosystem. China remains overly dependent on manufacturing and a fragile real estate sector. If current trends continue, India will become wealthier, younger, more innovative, and more globally integrated. India must maintain this structural momentum, continue its governance improvements, and overcome persistent challenges like deep poverty, inequality, and infrastructure gaps. China grew quickly and unsustainably. India's 7% growth is slower, but because it's built on the foundations of a young, diverse, and increasingly open democracy, it is destined to be more stable, more innovative, and ultimately more powerful. This isn't just an internal economic story. This is the geopolitical realignment of the 21st century. As India's power grows, it acts as a critical balancing force against China and Asia. Supply chains are reshaping, with companies moving from China to India. So what can you do? First, share this video. Most people have no idea how India's democratic engine is reshaping the global balance of power. Second, drop a comment. Do you believe India's democratic structure will give it the long-term advantage to surpass China's centralized system? Or will China's model still prove more efficient? And third, subscribe. Because next, we're breaking down the exact Indian sectors pulling in massive global capital and how they're setting the stage for a new economic superpower.